Nice morning, I decided to change my life path from black side to green side. And I decided to go to study renewable energy in Germany. And after that, I studied ocean energy in Portugal. I worked in some renewable energy companies. And another nice morning, I decided, why don't run my own startup? Renewable energy, of course. And I founded and became a CEO of company Heliorec. At Heliorec, we are building the cost-effective floating solar power plant with circular economy approach. So we have two offices, one in France and one in Russia. And 5 days ago, we deployed the first in the world hybrid for lake cleaning. It is floating PV and aeration system. And today I am very happy to be a moderator at that nice panel, Sustainable Future or No Future at All, how together industry sectors can save the planet. In this panel, experts from industry, non-profit, academia, company, startup will discuss what it means to have true cross-sector partnership and how to do it well. Dear audience, be active, please, and ask your questions in the chat. We will answer it in the end of the session. Dear panelists, please introduce yourself, and we can start with Ismahani.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Ismahan El-Wafi, and I'm the Director General of the International Center for Biosaline Agriculture, which is headquartered here in the United Arab Emirates. Thank you, Paulina.
Thank you very much, Ismahani. Jennifer, maybe you can tell a couple of words about yourself.
Thanks, Paulina. I'm Jennifer Nielsen. I'm headquartered in Australia, and I'm the founder of Australia's biggest eco-community. I think still probably one of the only ones like it in the world. Hopefully there'll be many more as time goes by. We are developing, well, in terms of partnerships, we do a lot of partnering work, something that corporates are particularly interested in now more than they have been in the past. I come from a corporate background, so I have, like Paulina, I went from the black side to the green about 10 years ago. And I've never made quite the same amount of money, but I'm very happy. and clearly it's a more useful way to live. We, though, do work extensively in partnerships, so I'm very pleased to be here tonight to talk about it.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. It was very nice. Ala, maybe you can give a couple of words about yourself, please.
Yeah, thank you, Paulina, so much. My name is Ala Afifi. I'm from Egypt. I'm the founder and the CEO of Bikia. I'm coming from software background, but I shifted to the waste management field. We are 100 million people in Egypt, and we have the same issue, which is we have a lot of trash in our streets. So we started to build a startup that Bikia that connect people who want to get rid of their waste. We connect them with the local collectors who need to increase their profit, daily collection, and so on. That's all.
Thank you very much, Alan. Sarah, please introduce yourself.
Of course, my name is Sarah Musa. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really honored to be joining you. I'm the founder of M.E.N.A. M.E.N.A creates solar water heaters for all, from energy-poor communities to energy-conscious consumers. M.E.N.A is based in Egypt, where we're addressing issues that are related to energy poverty. A few years ago, I noticed that there are households in different parts of the country that don't have access to a modern water heater. So instead, they use gas tanks or kerosene lamps to heat their water one pot at a time on a daily basis. Of course, this process is really harmful for the environment. It's also time-consuming, and it's a health and safety hazard. So our journey to M.E.N.A has been a long one. Our current business model is a cross-subsidy model where we sell to higher income communities and private sector entities and use proceeds from there to subsidize water heaters for low-income communities. And I'm especially excited about this panel today because M.E.N.A is the product of cross-sector collaborations, and we're acutely aware that our development and growth moving forward really depends on continuing to collaborate and reach across sectors.
Great. Thank you very much, Sarah. Yes, I hope your experience and experience of all our speakers today will bring a lot of useful insights to our audience. So let's start our discussion. And my first question to all of you: why do we need cross-sector partnerships to save the planet? Please, Esma, share your ideas.
Thank you very much, Paulina. So maybe in my introduction, I was a bit brief, so maybe I will combine both. So ICBA was created in 1996, and it was created to find solution for what we call marginal environment. So when you think agriculture at large, we think about arable land. And in terms of land worldwide, arable land is very limited. But we have a large number of what we call non-arable land, what we call environmental, marginal environments. And those marginal environments, we have shown over years that they host the poorest of the poor. I always say if you are a farmer in an arable land, most probably you're okay. You have a good income. If you are in a marginal environment, you are in a very harsh environment, and hence you don't have solutions. And that's why, because the issue is very big, the environmental degradation that we are seeing, the issues are huge. And because the issues are huge, and because the issues are very complex, they're so much interconnected that no single sector, no one single organization can really address it. And that's where cross-disciplinary, cross-sector solutions are needed. In our way of simplifying things, we tend to make silos. So in anything we are going about as a human, I don't know what's wrong about us, but we tend to silo everything. We put things in silos. Education, it's separate from workplace. So workplace is separate from policies. So science doesn't talk to policy. Policy does not talk to science. So we tend, I don't know why, we think that things could be simplified this way. But the reality of the things, and I think really in COVID-19, we understood it more than ever. The system that we think it's perfect, it's very, very inefficient. And from my perspective, the food system is very inefficient. And because it's inefficient, because it's very complex, nobody can do it alone. Scientists could give us ideas, but they cannot put it in place. Development people cannot do it alone. You can't do it without the consumers themselves and the stakeholders and the smallholders. And that's why we have to be much more open-minded. We should break those silos and get into a way where we are open for partnership, where we listen to each other, where we understand where we fit in the value chain or the system. Because we are all different kind of pieces that really has to work together. If it doesn't work together, we get to the disaster that we have right now. The disaster we have right now is that climate change, it's a reality. People now are debating, is it plus 1.5 degree? Is it plus 2? Is it plus 4? Is it plus 6? Those are the scenarios that the IPCC is talking about, the International Panel on Climate Change. But the reality of things, it is happening. And because it is happening, we better be ready for it. We better have new system, new ways of working together that will save us as a human being, as a species, and save the planet and everything that lives on the planet. So that's my contribution. Thank you, Paulina.
I totally agree with you, Ismahani. Jennifer, what do you think about this question? You're on mute. Jennifer, you are on mute.
Yeah, that would help, wouldn't it? It's very interesting listening to you already, because you can, and obviously as we all begin to speak, it makes this whole issue of just how complex it is so clear. So I guess I work in two main spaces, which in some ways are quite narrow but quite deep. So the first is that because I work with a lot of sustainable businesses, so they're NFPs or, sorry, not-for-profits or social enterprises or just businesses, right? And some are small, some are very big. But you can't be involved with EcoWorld unless you are technically a sustainable business selling sustainable products. And one of the interesting things that's happening in our space is that the big end of town, so we say big food particularly, or big cosmetics or whatever, treat smaller businesses as they're almost like their outsourced innovation department these days. So one of the big things we're interested in is putting the big end of town with the small end of town, right? They're finding them anyway, but you know, in another session I was doing today, there's a guy who's turning, for instance, fashion back into cellulose, into raw materials. So he met someone on this session today who's going to buy his pellets, his plastic pellets. So that's my life's work, is to try and get people who are to be doing great things, but secondly then to meet people who can further their causes around the world. And that's the way we influence the supply chain. So we can't physically change the supply chain, but we're trying to get consumers to behave differently and then manufacturers to behave differently in order to, impact and change the supply chain and create, a greener world as a result. That's the main area. We also have essentially a balanced scorecard way of scoring greenwashing of products, but perhaps I'll talk about that in the next section. It is completely about partnering across a broad range of certifiers. But the main thing in my space, I think, is really this in really developing innovation amongst smaller, nimble businesses, some startups, some not so much, but who look at the world quite differently. Often people who have never done something before start businesses, and they create solutions that mainstream just would never even think of. And we make them mainstream.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Alla, you as a startupper, what do you think about why do we need cross-sector partnerships?
Thank you, Mark. My colleagues. I think as I'm working in the waste management field in Egypt, it's not easy to gather all of the stakeholders in one unit, as they have different divisions and plans. I think they don't believe in the climate change problem. They just build business for profit. So when they need to think how to integrate between the stakeholders to find a way to the climate change problem. As we living in the same planet, we need to integrate. I think we need to start to share knowledge, data to overcome the problem. As I think we are missing a lot of knowledge and data to find the solution for the climate change. Startups, as I'm a startup, we need to involve more startups. Startups, they can find creative solutions for the climate change. I'm in Egypt, and we have a critical problem in Egypt in the waste management field. And each stakeholder is working alone, and we don't ever integrate it to find a way to the problem. So it's a totally partnership is a critical thing. We need to think about it, and we need to address. It's a problem we need to address in the upcoming years. Thank you so much.
Yeah, hopefully we will do it as soon as possible. Sarah, what do you think about why do we need cross-sector partnerships?
Sure. So I agree with all of my fellow panelists, and I would say from a bigger picture perspective that there isn't any single policy or social program or technology or business model, no matter how well crafted, how innovative, or well implemented, that can solve a problem as big and complex as climate change on its own. And the private, public, and social sectors, they each have different advantages and they each have different limitations in terms of addressing challenges. For example, the private sector is often constrained by profit, but it's incentivized to be more innovative compared to the public sector, which has to adhere to certain checks and balances, but obviously has the ability to make large-scale structural sort of impact. So each sector has its own limitations. They each have their own access to unique resources that are beyond the reach of other sectors. So through cross-sector collaboration, we can move beyond these limitations and we can sort of reach into resources more effectively for better solutions.
Great. Thank you very much, Sarah. And we will move to our next question. How do you use cross-sector partnerships for better sustainability at your work? Please give some examples. Ismahan, you can start, please.
Yes, thank you, Paulina. So we are a research for development center. So what we do is particularly working with academia that have normally the basic research. Then we make it, we do applied research to find a solution that works in the farmer fields. So the way we use partnership, our partnership model is very complex. It's we work with ministries of agriculture across the world, but particularly in the least income countries and the middle income countries. We work with research institutions in those countries, like for example, in Mali, in Morocco, in Egypt, in Jordan, and so on and so forth, in Uzbekistan, and we're in about 40 countries. And we do also work with farmer organizations and with development agencies. So the way I see it myself, it's really, if we look at it from the innovation, let's see, stream, you got academia that really give you the really innovation and invention that will make a difference. Let's see, in agriculture, it could be a gene for salinity tolerance or drought tolerance. You get center like us that really take that gene and will put it in a crop. Let me say, for example, just as an example now, I could say for quinoa or millet or barley. And then we work with the national system to provide them with the know-how, to provide them with the tool in a package that they can use. And normally the national system, working with their own research institution, working with their farmers and extension services, will take that know-how and make it at scale. So the partnership is needed because, as we said, right here, you don't have an institution that does it all. But what I see, there is a lot of gaps and lot of inefficiencies again, because in countries, in developed countries, let me give the example of Canada. Canada have a ministry that does this role that we are doing here. So you got normally universities across the country that do the basic research. You got the Ministry of Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada that normally have about 1,000 scientists to really take the applied, and they give it to the farmers or to the private sector, depends what we are talking about, for scaling up at large. And you find the system working very well. You got the CSIRO in Australia, for example. So in developed countries, the system, it's well
think connection was broken. Do you hear the same, Jennifer?
Yes.
Yes. So let's move to Jennifer, to you, and I hope M.E.N.A can fix connection from your side. So Jennifer, maybe you can give some great examples when you use it cross-sector partnerships at your work.
Yes, thank you. In our case, again, we're very focused on products. So I'm particularly interested in consumption, and one of the big problems we face is that is actually the same problem everyone's been talking about in different ways, and that is that everyone thinks they invented the solutions to everything. So depending on what your belief set is, or what academia you come from, or what government department, it's your plan that's going to save the planet, or it's your idea, etc., etc. So for a long time, we were looking for a way of scoring the eco-ness of products, because what we saw going on, even in the sustainability space, the eco space, was that people tend to virtue signal the good things about their products and ignore the not so good things. And greenwashing is often seen as something that bad products do, but in reality, everyone does it. We all do it, actually. Think about makeup for starters, where you're playing down defects and highlighting things that we think are attractive. And so products are the same. So one of the, I think, most successful examples I'd give you is we went to, I looked around for a long time to try and find somebody to help me with this certification, sort of cross-certification strategy. So what I'm trying to, I'll explain an example. So say something is vegan, a vegan product is promoting itself as being an excellent product because it's vegan. Then it may, the question is still, is it a fair trade product? Was it made by slaves? Or probably the biggest single one about vegans is, one of the big problems with vegan products is that the beeswax and things like that can't be used are often replaced with palm oil. Now, the problem with palm oil is it's not an animal product, but it does put animals out of their homes. So essentially, we're interested in things like understanding that a vegan product may be vegan, but you need to declare whether it includes palm oil, because that allows people to understand the broad spectrum of truth of a product. So in the development of all of our assessments, there are 10 essential pillars, 5 societal and 5 environmental, and they're broken down into hundreds of certifications. I spent a lot of time trying to find solutions with academia in the environmental science area, and no one would work with me. And the reason, it took me a long time to understand, but the reason was because I kept finding scientists who thought they understood the problem better than me, but then I realised that environmental science don't necessarily understand consumption. And in the end, maybe I'm slow, but I ended up realising that working with computer scientists was a better way to go. And essentially, what we've ended up doing is working with one of the big universities here in Australia to build, firstly, an algorithm that allows us to stack rank everything, and then it's underpinned with AI and essentially automation, which will eventually allow us to score any product on the planet with or without permission. So that's it's been very interesting for me, because it solved a problem that I was looking in the wrong place to solve from an academic perspective. But from a computer science perspective, these are academics who are always looking to apply their skills and never thought to look in this space. And they've been amazing people to work with. They picked it up very quickly. They don't argue about, their worldview. It's purely mathematical, and that's basically the kind of assessment we want. I know that's a narrow assessment, but a narrow scope of cross-sector, but it is so important. And that one relationship can change so much, around what we know about products. Well, it is actually.
Yes, definitely, very interesting experience. Ala, what do you think? And maybe you can give some examples of your experience in this partnership.
Okay, so as I said, we are working in the waste management sector in Egypt, and there is a problem is how to digitalize the waste collection, the daily process of collection in Egypt. So we started to work with the tech sector in Egypt to build, to change the physical collections and the problems, and then we built a digital platform. People can learn how to segregate the waste in their homes, and they can track and we can track their performance based on artificial intelligence system. So I can track your daily performance based on type of waste and so on, and your consumption of plastics, paper. Then we can produce a report, a detailed reports, including your how our family members using the plastics, how they can use the paper, and so on. There's the first one. Second one is a fintech sector. We started to, we exchange the waste for cash. So we started to integrate with the fintech sectors in Egypt to find a way to how to exchange the waste for cash. So people started to use the ATM to get their cash, daily cash. They can use the mobile application. So totally, I think we need, we started to put Bekia in the loop of the partnership. I think it's a good chance to have a lot of partnership, to raise awareness, to reach to your target. It's a win-win situation.
Thank you very much, Ala.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sarah?
Yeah, so Shamsina wouldn't really be where it is today if it wasn't for collaboration across multiple sectors. First, from the beginning, we've been a part of incubators like the Harvard Innovation Labs and Clean Tech Arabia that have strong representation from across academic, private, and government entities from around the world, really. And so we've really been shaped by the input and the expertise and the advice of people from across these sectors. And then in our on-the-ground day-to-day work, NGOs in particular have been critical to enabling Shamsina to understand the problem and to reach the right communities. Our first pilot, for example, was installed in an education community center called M.E.N.A, and the 25 water heater pilots that we've installed around the country were all in households that were nominated to us by non-governmental organizations that have sort of deep grassroots ties in their communities. And now as we're moving forward towards scaling our product, we're reaching out to other private sector entities. Hotels and businesses have been sort of big supporters in purchasing our products and enabling us to then subsidize these products for low-income communities. We're also in the process of reaching out to government entities that have in the past sort of expressed support for this type of work and for the need to move towards clean technology. So cross-sector collaboration has sort of embedded in what Shamsina is and what it does, and will be really critical for our future development and our ability to grow.
Definitely. So alone you can go faster, but together we can go further. Yeah. So cross-sector opportunities and partnerships very, very important. So, and my third question to all of you: where do you think opportunities lies, and where we are missing, and what we are missing to go to carbon neutrality faster? Ismahan, please start.
And I hope this time it wouldn't be cat. Let's try it. So as I said earlier, I think I see a lot of gap and inefficiencies in the food systems, particularly. And those gaps and inefficiencies could help us to get towards the carbon neutrality. Carbon neutrality is really very far away target, but we could get closer at least. So let me give you some of the gaps I see. So if we think about a food system, like anything else, I think really the saying nothing is lost, nothing is created, everything is transformed. It's very true. So the cycle, what we start with, get transformed to A, B, C, D, and then goes back. And that's why I'm very happy that Ala has a company that is for waste management. So across the value chain of the food system, if we think about the waste, there is a huge waste at the farmer levels, there's a huge waste at the transportation, there's a huge waste at the processing level, there's a huge waste at the supermarket level, and there is a huge waste at the household level. So if we look at only those, it's an amazing opportunities, and I'm very happy that I see a lot of startups in Egypt, in Turkey, in the UAE. It's amazing. And I'm really happy because waste management, it's huge right now in the food system. We know that the waste is around 35 to 40% of the food production. So if we can bring back that 35% to 40% is amazing. The other gaps that I see myself, it's really the gap between science and policy, science and market. So there isn't an efficient way of working with private sector. So we tend to really focus on the public service, and we tend to push it too hard on the public service in general, or public sector. And we don't have yet a mechanism to incentivize the private sector and to make them pick up the innovations. So if I look at the OECD countries, for example, and we have every year, we have the ranking of the most countries that generate knowledge and the countries that take knowledge and make it innovation, you find that the only countries that really have a good balance, it's the Nordic European countries like Finland, like Sweden, where they do both of them. But most of other countries, they either do the generation or they do the innovation. And really, for me, coming from an international development perspective, where sustainability is a must, really, I think about the South countries. The South countries should invest more in data mining, in getting the information and bringing it to innovation. We have to stop centralizing everything in only certain countries. Like the seed production system, everything is too big. There are only few of them, Syngenta, DuPont, and most of them, there used to be 4, they merge and we have now 2 big ones. It doesn't make sense. You should have your seed system in every country. Guess what's the big how would I call it? Contrebande en français. I can't find the word in English. One of the smuggling things, the things that happens without tax payment smuggling into Egypt, it's seeds sector. So the seed, and Egypt, it's a big agricultural country. So they don't have enough seeds. So most of the seeds do not exist in the south. They go to the south, they are way too expensive, and it doesn't help the smallholder farmers. So there's a lot of gaps in the food system. I can't really say them all in 2 minutes, but if I want to sum it up, it's connection between science, policy, and innovation and market. And the second big one, it's really connection between public and private sector. How do we complement each other? How the public works as a facilitator and the private sector as really the doer and the sector that will activate the economy and help the country prosper. Thank you. Back to you, Paulina.
Thank you very much, Ismahani. Very wide experience. Jennifer, what do you think? Where is we have opportunities and where is the gaps?
Look, I think from my perspective, as you know, I'm interested in consumption, and I really think, honestly, and it may be different. Certainly, it's different in more advanced countries. But, well, depending on who you think is an advanced country, of course, but I'm talking about in the context of sustainability, I honestly think a big part of the problem is that people in the street don't understand the issue. Now, it's easy for governments, for companies, for anyone really, to bamboozle you if you don't understand the issue. So I think that, to me, the whole carbon neutrality issue, the achievement of it, its relevance to daily life, etc., I honestly just do not see evidence that it's understood. And so in my world, that's back to, because I also at the same time see a lot of grassroots change. So one of the things I've really seen in the last couple of years is, I'll give you a great example of it. Certainly in Australia, you probably know we're one of the worst emitters in the world because of our electricity, coal systems, etc. But we, and really there doesn't seem to be any real motivation to do anything about it. But but you can talk to people if you can just find the way to do it. So, and a great example, I think, is the way the pension funds have gotten together, like the interparliamentary group, the IGCC, for instance, who have gotten all the big superannuation funds together. So they now have trillions of dollars worth of influence, and they're using that influence to impact, to make people like, or businesses like BHP, for instance, pay attention. But and literally they are getting the mining companies in the bigger end of town to pay attention in ways that government hasn't been able to. And the reason is money. It's hip pocket. So essentially they've found a way to get people to listen that's based on consumption, the very thing that got us into the problem. And in many ways, I think it's one of the only ways to talk to people about getting out. Now, the extension of the point with these superannuation funds ganging up to bring some influence to bear on, people like BHP, is that suddenly the person whose superannuation fund is being invested in things that may be a very bad risk in 30 years' time are interested. Am I making sense? So if you're 30 today and you're retiring in, 20 or 30 years, when things are all supposed to be, falling apart because of the way we're treating the planet, suddenly you're interested in how your money's going to perform because you mightn't have anything to live on in 20 or 30 years. So you might be able to make sense of climate change or greenhouse gases, but you sure can make sense of whether you're going to have anything to live on. So I think, to me, I'm just not, I just have seen so little evidence of the ability of mainstream consumers to understand the problem, to put pressure on governments. I think we've got to find another way.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Alan, maybe you can point some gaps.
Yeah. I think the problem is people give up fast. You are entering a niche market, potential opportunity, so you have to be patient. I have a funny fact about my startup. It takes around 4 months to receive the first order, the first separated order, because we're asking our clients to segregate their waste in their homes, which is the case. So it takes a lot to convince people to do that. Actually, in Egypt, we are 100 million people. According to our data, we produce around 75 variable waste per month. That was more than around $8.5 per month. Let's imagine we are 100 million people. It's a great opportunity. It's a great chance to start investing in the related climate change fields, waste management, solar energy, and so on. Because nobody pay attention for these sectors, as I think a lot of investors, governments, they just invest in we can say fintech, e-commerce, and so on. They don't ever pay attention for the great opportunity and the potential in those sectors. So yeah, I That's my point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very nice. Sarah, please give your thoughts.
Sure. So I think that to move forward with cleaner, more sustainable practices, we really need to look at our incentive structures and see how we can improve or change them. I think increasingly, especially in this region, there are disincentives to using fossil fuels, but maybe not enough incentives for research and development and adoption of clean technologies. So in Shamsina's case, for example, we see that the households that we interact with are often discouraged from using electricity or mainstream energy sources. And this has been especially the case in the past few years due to subsidy cuts. So in the past sort of 3 or 4 years, electricity bills in Egypt have on average tripled due to subsidy cuts. But there aren't those same incentives in place to sort of push people towards using clean technology or to make that technology even accessible through through more encouragement of research and development and production on that end. But there's certainly a move towards clean technology, and ambitious goals have been put in place for more sustainable practices on this end, but I do think that there's still room to be done for encouraging development and use of these technologies even more.
Yes, hopefully it will, some people, sectors can do more. So, and my last questions to all of you: how can sectors or companies, startups, government, academia can work better together and show a real positive impact on the planet? Because we like to talk, but a real positive impact is unfortunately difficult to see. So what is your opinion on it? Ismahani, please. I think Ismahani has some connection problems, so we will come back to her later. So Jennifer, please, can you give your thoughts on this question?
Wow, it's a tough one, isn't it? Look, I think from my perspective, and I guess I respect there's many different points of view. Certainly from a consumption perspective, I'm very interested in the bottom-up approach. I think more and more change is being driven at a grassroots level, and consumers are demanding change. I think a lot of businesses, suppliers, product suppliers that are close to consumers respond, and it's almost like it's going upstream. So the innovation is happening closer to consumers quite often, and bigger companies are watching the innovation and then picking up from the smaller companies. The academia isn't my forte. I mean, I work with universities, but it's really within the context of developing eco school and computer scientists. So while I understand the research, extensive research is not my expertise. But I honestly see and I also just my critical analysis. I don't work in government with government. So my partner's political view may be a reflection of that, but I really don't think government's doing enough to positively further the agenda. And I think we can bear the burden of a lot of it, driven by grassroots change.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. So let's move to Ismahani back.
Okay, thank you, Paulina.
You're on mute.
I am on mute.
Now it's fine.
Yeah, now it's fine? Okay. So, Paulina, I was saying that we do need all to work very well together, because really we are part of the continuum. And I want to just give it, the most important is really communication and planning together. So I want to again give examples to just make it clear. For example, when we talk about value chain, it's very important to have a platform where everybody comes together. And that's really a model that exists in many countries. In Canada, for example, what they have is that's what they call the round tables, and it is commodity, like it's the cheese round table, it's the wheat round table, it's by commodity. And that's very important. You bring in academia, you bring in public service, you bring in private, and you bring in consumers, and then you can make changes. Sustainability is a very important big change coming down on those value chains right now. If I think about Morocco, for example, in their plan, they did as well the same idea of creating a value chain. And what they did innovatively, I think that really pushed the sustainability, but also the income return for the smallholders, is that they bring in the big farmers with the smallholders. So bring in the capacity of the small farmers to work with the big farmers and have access to technology. If I want to give one example from the United Arab Emirates, and it's really about bringing a new crop. So when we talk about marginal environments, you cannot grow wheat, you cannot grow rice or maize or corn, because those crops, it's called staple, and they need arable land. So what we do at the center here is creating or bringing in new crops. And most of these old crops, or those new crops are effectively very, very old crops that happen to be part of our diet 1,000 years ago, but not anymore now. So when we bring them, there is always a need to create the value chain. And that's what we did with Expo 2020.
Lost her again. That's
We
such a
lost
shame.
you again.
That diversity is so important, and how we have so little diversity left. That point she was making about seeds, and taking us back to the kinds of foods we used to eat that are more adaptable to the climate.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully Ismahan can come back later, and in the end maybe she can finish your main point on this question. So Ala, what do you think on this? How we can make a real positive impact?
As a startup, I think there's two sides. First one is how to. I think the governments should consider the solutions of the startups as a primary solution. They need to involve them at the loop. As I said, I think startups, they have great solutions for the climate change, and they can achieve SDGs and the climate change problem and so on. Second one, I think we need to see more venture capitals and accelerators invest in the waste management and anything related to the sustainability problems. They need to invest more. It's not cash. They need to invest more in knowledge, data. We need more data. We need a lot of things that we can help to achieve a lot of plans. That's my thoughts.
Yes, definitely. I can understand you, because I also have my startup. Yeah. So, okay. Sarah, what do you think on this? How we can do it?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think as a starting point, forums like this that bring together perspectives of different sort of people from different sectors and different types of organizations, it's a really great starting point. I do think, I think M.E.N.A was hitting on this, but I do think that there's a need for sort of more structured platforms or structured ways of keeping this communication over the long term, because I'm sure that there are a lot of individual cases of cross-sector collaboration But when we really think of such a large scale problem as climate change, again, it's not, it's not a single initiative, even if that initiative is very well embedded within sort of other sectors that will bring on a solution. But within countries or even regions or globally, I do think that there needs to be much more structure in terms of bringing together these voices and tackling this issue.
Definitely. So it was my last question.
Maybe Paulina, if I can continue the example I started, because I think it's nice.
Yes. So please continue. We have one question, I guess, and then we can give last word from everyone to finish our session. So Esmahani, please, if you can make.
Yes. So I was just saying that bringing a new crop required really that we work with all parties and with all stakeholders. And for the first time in our time, as a research institute, and we work with chefs to really make that new crop as part of the food system. So the chef helped us to make it part of dishes, make a juice out of it. And because it's irrigated by seawater, he find out a juice that is very full of electrolyte, which is very good for sporty people, like young people like Ala, that do a lot of muscle building and so on and so forth. So we work with the private sector as well to really make that new crops in the food system. So a company, GFI in Sharjah, got an innovation award because they make a burger with no salt whatsoever. So it was a burger, the meat with saliconia, which make it zero salt in their case, which is really important. And then we work with the farmers to get them to use their desalination brine for irrigating this crop and mixing it with aquaculture. So they did an aquaponic. So it was really nice to see how over 3 years, because we had the crop, we had the system, how we brought in chefs, private sector, and farmers to really create the whole value chain. And the intention is that this crop and those food going to be sold in Expo 2020. Now it has been delayed to next year, but the project continues. And if you come to Dubai for Expo 2020, you will have some of these crops that were irrigated with seawater. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great. Hopefully we will go. Everyone will go to this event.
I hope so. Yeah.
Great. So as we have 7 minutes to finish, and we don't have questions, so let's make a short, last thing, what you think important to mention, how to do sustainability in the better way. So last word, what you can mention to give people, inspire them to do this as best as they can. Please, Esmahani, you can start your last point on it and say goodbye to our audience.
Okay. So I think for me, sustainability, it's not a choice anymore. It's a must. We came at a cross point as a planet and as human species that if we don't do it right, it's over. And 2020 showed it to us. It started with the fires in Australia, and then we got so many disasters, so many floods, another COVID-19. But other than COVID-19 and what have you, see the fires now in California and in British Columbia. So it is, and it just, we messed up the planet. So we have to go sustainable. This is no choice. How we do it, everybody has a role to play, from the public to the private to individuals. So we have really to rethink what we eat. We have to rethink how we live, and we have to really take action. As an individuals, as an institution, as a government, I think it's really a turning point that maybe we won't have another chance to remake it. And I think food system, in my mind, needs to really to change. And that's why the Secretary General of the United Nations called for a summit that's going to happen in October 2021, which is the United Nations Summit, United Nations Food System Summit. I'm part of the scientific committee. And the scientific committee, what we are looking for, is scientific ground to really put new food systems and to make it right this time and improve the inefficiencies and get the cross-sectorial partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ismahani. Jennifer, your last word on it?
I totally agree with what was just said. I think perhaps the way we go about it is tricky, because we've well and truly proven so far that no one's going to put tools down and start communicating and helping each other out. Doesn't matter how much we talk about it. My appeal, honestly, is to the technical community. I think if someone, to Sarah's point before, we need a way to communicate everything that's going on. So I hate waste as well. So we stop wasting time, wasting brains, wasting money, wasting everything, doing things twice, doing things 1,000 times, relearning things. We have to find a way to communicate the things that are being done across the world, so that in a way that people listen. And I think it's the tech community. The AI exists, the tech exists to be able to do it. We just need someone with a vision. And I think I can't see any other way it's going to happen, short of catastrophe, and then it's too late. That's a bit of a doomsday ending, I'm sorry, but I guess I want to say, because I think there's a real appeal to the tech sector to really think about what can be done. We know what the issues are. We just need someone to help us bring it together.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Alla, what do you think? Yeah. Thank you. Alla, what is your last word on it?
I think I will not add more, but I think people must believe in sustainability. Once they believe in sustainability, they can do anything. And we need to start building green communities between families and each other. We need to start decreasing our shopping, plastic usage, food consumption, and so on. We need to start to do that. It's not optional. It's not optional, as we need to do that.
Definitely, yes.
Thank you so
We
much.
have to act. Yeah. Sarah, please, your last word.
Of course. So I'll try to end it on a bit of a positive note by saying that I really do believe that anyone can contribute, and that simple solutions can go a really far way. M.E.N.A started off as a workshop in an unplanned district in Cairo, where we constructed our solar water heaters out of entirely local materials and using entirely local craftsmanship. And so really don't underestimate the power of what you as an individual or a group of individuals, no matter where you are and what tools or resources you have, can do to contribute to this solution. Of course, on a larger scale, I really do believe in the importance of participation from a wide range of sectors, but again, don't underestimate your individual power.
Yes, everyone can do some, like, we are all like a drop in the ocean, but what is the ocean? It's many, many drops. So everyone can act, everyone can do something useful for the planet, for society, for everyone around. So thank you very much to all of you. Hope we gave some insights to our audience, and they can use it in their work and their life. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.